I extend my welcome out to everyone as well. We appreciate it when you take the time to come join us on these webinars. This one's one that generates a lot of interest because of what's going out in the enterprise in general. Not just our part of it, but sort of the whole move out there for centralization and infrastructure changes that are kind of being thrust upon everybody as part of that. So if we look at the enterprise in general, yeah, it's not what it used to be. A large company before, even a company with 10 different locations, was really silo-based. There were 10 large locations, and they all worked on their own. They had their own data infrastructures and email infrastructures eventually, and telephony infrastructures. And basically that's how the world worked. And there really wasn't much choice but to do it that way, because the kind of data backbones that we can enjoy today really weren't there, and that kind of centralization wasn't possible. But starting, maybe 10 years ago, the data networks that were available led people to understand that they could start to consolidate their data infrastructures. And they did that. And the footprint of a large enterprise changed dramatically from, monolithic silos all over the place to a large centralized enterprise. And that made it much more complex, but it was worth it for the costs, the control and the lower costs of maintaining it that way, and the speed at which business could be done. All of those were key pieces for why people centralized their data infrastructure. And it left them now with large infrastructures, thousands of employees, still, software and telephony systems all over the place. Nobody's really gotten it down to the single, one integrated system kind of point at all. And that's not going to change, because along with everything else, the financial pressures with how the market is doing means that infrastructure investments are for important things and things that directly impact revenue. So we sort of sit in this state of integrated but not completely homogeneous. And that puts challenges out there. If we look at what the people out in the industry are saying, pretty much everyone agrees there's things that need to be done to increase the infrastructure value. Investments in the infrastructure, particularly in some of the older telephony-type technologies and messaging technologies. And looking at the new UC applications, there are just really strong case studies now that show there are some unified communications applications that are cost justified. They will lower operating costs. They will increase employee productivity. And now the challenge across those larger enterprises, well, how do we do that with an enterprise that's so diverse? And there's a couple of different ways that people are approaching it, but pretty much everyone has decided it is time to do some of these things to take advantage. Now, part of that driver is some of the legacy infrastructure has gone out of support, particularly, again, on the telephony and messaging side. There are large enterprises that have systems where they can't really get a maintenance agreement that guarantees it'll be fixed. They're limited to, buying parts on eBay and hoarding them, or maybe having a best effort maintenance contract from a vendor that agrees to come out and work on it, but doesn't, really commit to being able to fix it. So with what went on with the consolidation of the data infrastructure and the email infrastructure, people are now trying to figure out, how can I get that same kind of consolidation in the communications world and as part of the unified communications movement? There's two camps here, of course. Those people that make all the other infrastructure components have a really great strategy that says, take out all that old stuff and put in all our new stuff, and it'll all work together, it'll be seamless, and yes, we have unified communications that you can get along with that. That's kind of the suite approach. Buy the entire suite of products from us. And there's a couple of things with that don't sit really well with most companies right now. The cost is the biggest one, of course. Ripping out the existing infrastructure that works pretty well in order to just get it all be the same, that's not a very good cost formula. Yes, downstream it's going to be cheaper to maintain, but the cost to get there, I don't know what the payoff is on that, but it's probably in the 20 to 30 year range is the way it sits today. And that same suite offering, while they can do unified communications, none of those suite products are really ranked very high in the unified communication space. The best of breed solutions tend to be point solutions that people make. So our approach is a little different. In those areas where we play, we believe you should leave your legacy infrastructure in place until you're ready to replace it. And when you do replace it, that'll be great. But along the way, we can give you consolidation on the telephony side, on the messaging side, and a great path to unified communications, but still leveraging that existing investment. We believe in interoperability. We like to, be able to connect to everything out there, old and new, so that you can make the decision to deploy our applications not linked to other things like having to replace your infrastructure. And, it's not an easy thing to do with products today with the changes that are going on. Used to be easier. Yes, there were telephone vendors, multiple vendors, but they changed their telephone systems every 5 years. So you could buy a phone system and it pretty much didn't change for 5 years, sometimes longer than that. And that isn't the story today. All these vendors today, there's at least a yearly change and mid-year changes all the time. And we work really hard to make sure that our equipment will connect to anything out in that telephony world. And we're the last vendor that really does this. A lot of other vendors will tell you they can connect to everything, and they use some sort of media gateway to do that. And it gives you an integration, but it's a limited integration, limited in reliability and functionality. We still maintain native integrations for all of the active phone systems, and we support all the older legacy phone systems as well. So if you look at us going into your environment from a telephony point of view, our story is very simple. We'll work with whatever you have today. Now, that being said, when you decide to upgrade that infrastructure, we work with all the new infrastructure as well. You could have an older Avaya infrastructure using TDM switches. We can connect to that today and deliver every single feature that we have. There's no, you have to change to SIP to get unified communications story coming out of our mouth. It's no, we do everything we do with your old switch. And when you're ready and you're going to upgrade that switch, you're going to buy another brand of switch, you're going to move to a SIP integration, it's just a matter of reprogramming the system and connecting to that. So we're a fairly painless entry point into unified communications because it doesn't have to be tied to everything else that you're doing. And the reason for that is our architecture and our history to a certain extent. We were founded by some data people years ago. Those data people built us like a true 3-tier data application. So we have nice separation between the interoperability on the outside with what we connect to, the core services internally, and the application stacks that sit on top of our product. And that's what lets us be so flexible. That's what lets us connect to whatever phone system you have and multiple phone systems, whatever email system you have and multiple email systems, and deploy whatever features you want spread across users in any way that you want to do that. And that kind of interoperability lets us play in these market conditions today far better than our competitors. So if we look at centralization, the thing about centralization is it comes right along with resiliency. If you had 10 large separate silo enterprises, it was important that those were reliable and work well. But when you centralize that into a single infrastructure, it's even more important. You really don't want to have a centralized infrastructure where your entire company can go down. So much about centralization has a discussion basis based on the reliability that we can deploy. And we basically have grown up along with that movement, so we're in an excellent place to talk about resiliency through virtualization or hardware redundancy. Scalability for these centralizations, a single system can go up to 500 ports, which for most companies is more than enough with what's actually done with a messaging and call processing system today. We can hook to all of your phone systems together. There's no need to change any phone system out, whether it's old or to be the same type. And all those integrations offer the full feature set. We have a high level of survivability. We're going to talk about that in a couple of slides to come. We emulate the legacy systems that you're looking at replacing and updating out there. So the user interface that you have today, maybe on your Octel or your Centigram, you really don't want to have to retrain all your users. There's a software module on our system that simply lets you do a drop-down in a user's mailbox and select that type of telephony interface for them to use. We support time zones, dialing plans, multilingual, all the things that are really needed when you look at centralizing a large infrastructure. And we do extremely well in this. And our customer list, shows that large enterprise customers who maybe end up going from a worldwide, completely separate, diverse telephony infrastructure to a 3 data center, 1 data center in EMEA, 1 data center in the U.S., and 1 out on the Pacific Rim. Those customers have come to us, and we've been able to deploy that architecture with them and done a very good job. We have a lot of great references. It helps quite a bit. So if we look at the kind of things that people are doing with centralization, it's easy for us to put a system together in whatever kind of architecture that somebody has. So this is just a simple graphic showing somebody with a main site and maybe up to 5 remote sites. And each one of those sites has its own PBX, and a different kind of PBX is pretty likely as well. And each one of those sites can be supported by us in a number of different ways. We can put some call servers out there. We'll look at what the call servers do in the next slide. And for smaller sites, we can actually put Dialogic Media Gateways out there. We do support gateways. They just aren't always the ideal solution. So in this kind of environment, we're able to do the whiteboard talk where you draw us what your infrastructure is today. We draw the components to show how we can slip into that infrastructure today. And then you tell us, well, and here's where we're going over the next 5 years, and we move these boxes around to make you comfortable that everything you buy today simply gets repurposed in your totally centralized architecture of the future. So the components we talk about, the two main components, call server, that's the workhorse. That's the piece of our software that connects to your phone system, answers a call, runs all the applications, and takes messages. The messages are then moved to the centralized component, which is called the system server, and that's the centralized user database, message store, admin interface, etc. Every CX system consists of at least one instance of a call server software and a system server software being installed. They can both be installed on a single physical server. There's no need to have multiple servers. Multiple servers are never required, even for all of our applications. Everything will run on a single physical box. But it gets interesting to have these multiple components when we look at scalability, reliability, and consolidation. So if we look at kind of the choices we have in these sites, at the main site or a remote site, I would probably put two call servers in. That way, if one physical call server fails, the other one is now still in place and taking calls, so you don't have a single point of failure that will lose the ability for you to take calls. I might put a single call server in a smaller site where maybe there was no call center, there was no real strong customer interface, where you were comfortable that if it failed and it was down for an hour until you got it back up and going, that wouldn't be a major, just wouldn't be a major kind of problem. The great things about the call servers are they work even if your network goes down. So in this kind of remote site architecture, you in a lot of instances, you're at the mercy of your data network. And if your data network goes down, your far ends kind of go dead. And that's not the case with us. With us, we can put a call server out there, and when the network goes down, although that call server can't talk to the system server, it's highly survivable. It continues to answer calls, runs all the applications, custom IVR applications, speech rec automated attendant, everything we have still runs, records new messages. So from the caller's point of view, there's no impact if the network goes down. The one thing that happens is users can't call into that call server and get their messages, since their messages are back at the system server to which connection has been lost. So still a high level of reliability just from having the call servers. Now we're happy to support the media gateways. We use Dialogic Media Gateways, very similar to the other gateways like audio codes and things out there. And there's reasons for putting Dialogic Media Gateways out at sites. Smaller sites, sites where you really don't have a data presence, so things like loading software patches is really going to be an issue. So we can switch back and forth between the media gateways and the call servers. The trade-off is the call servers, more reliability if the network fails, and the Dialogic Media Gateway is less maintenance by the IT staff. So this is where we sit down with that whiteboard chart and literally talk about how that's going to work. In a fully blown consolidated infrastructure, we would probably have multiple call servers at the important locations, a single call server or Dialogic Media Gateways, or even multiple media gateways at some of the smaller and less important sites, and then a pair of system servers at the main site. And this pair of system servers run in active-passive mode. So if I lose the main system server, if it goes bad, the backup system server kicks in automatically. So with a couple of system servers and a couple of call servers at that main site, there is no component that can take you out of business or seriously impact your application functionality. And for those that have learned fairly early on in their data infrastructure centralization that it's a good idea to have a backup data center in case you lose the main site, we support that by putting a system server at one of your remote sites or your backup colo or whatever you're using. It can be a third system server or it can be the second system server. We support either of those implementations. So as we talk about centralizing, we have both the components for the far end pieces and an architecture in the centralized piece and a redundancy setup that lets you basically have any mix of functionality and redundancy that you're looking for. This is a pretty impressive toolkit compared to our competitors. We support 500 ports, which is about 40,000 users. We don't actually license voicemail users. Obviously, the number of ports impacts how many you can really support, but 500 ports will very comfortably support 40,000 users. We have customers with over that on a system already. Of those, 20,000 can be configured for unified messaging, and we have 20 of those call servers to play with. Largest number anyone else has is 3. So with 20 call servers, like shown on the left here, I can have 10 sites with redundancy on site with multiple call servers, or 20 sites, each with a single call server that'll survive a network failure. And then I have my 3 system servers to mix and match for my redundancy options. A single physical system can support up to 144 ports with the basic applications, or up to 96 ports with the speech rec engine on there for our higher end application. So we're in pretty good shape to cover whatever you have architecturally. We support up to 10 different types of PBXs on a single CX system. Now that's not 10 PBXs. We have one customer that has 60 PBXs on a single CX system. It's 10 separate types. So architecturally, we're going to be able to come in and look at your whiteboard and put our components up there and match whatever it is you're looking for. And you're not only going to get the redundancy, but this architecture that goes into place is the leading UC platform out there for the applications that we support. So even if you choose to go in first, simply for the centralization and redundancy with the basic UC voice kind of functionality, you will then be set up to move to the UC functionality. And we have the industry's leading UC functionality. If you look at our unified messaging, talk to people like Gartner, they will tell you we are the best of breed provider for this. And the new things we've done with Atom and our mobility and our personal location pieces are absolutely leading edge. No one else in the market comes anywhere near the kind of things we do. And as a last piece, if you need something and we don't have it, we have the toolkits that let us build the custom solutions for these larger enterprises. I would say our really large enterprise accounts, 1 out of 2 of them, goes in with some sort of custom software that either we wrote or they used our toolkits to write for them. From a UC point of view, we've been in this market longer than anyone else. Our product is the most mature product on the market. It's been on the market since 1985. And yes, we've certainly changed it over the years. We've changed the operating system a number of times. But you could have bought our system in 1985 as a simple voicemail, recorded your name and greeting, and today be using that same recorded name and greeting with all of our advanced features. And our advanced features are impressive. We have the most flexible unified messaging on the market today. We have a fully speech-enabled product, both an automated attendant for a speech directory and a user interface. And everything, since it's running on one platform, is aware. So when somebody calls in to my speech front end and it says, please say the first and last name of who you'd like to reach, and they say my name, and I happen to be logged into the system, even on another call server somewhere, I'm listening to messages, those applications are aware. So I get a little tone in my ear and say, hey, you have a call from this other person. You want to take that call right now? We do things with integration that no one else even can think of doing because of the way their architectures are limited. And then this highest level, our personal assistant, I actually can wander around my business day without ever touching any of the settings on my system, and phone calls will come to me on the device that's appropriate automatically. So when I'm at home, calls ring to my Link client because that's what I use at home. As soon as I climb in my car and drive out of my driveway, my phone calls are automatically moved and ring to my mobile phone because I use the Bluetooth in my car while I'm driving to work. As soon as I walk in the door at work, my calls are automatically routed to my desk phone. As soon as I go in a meeting, I automatically change the greeting on the system to tell the customer, the caller, that I'm in a meeting, when I'll be back, and I've set a callback expectation. So whether it's the simplest replacement of the infrastructure that you need to do or the most complex unified communications functionality that you're looking for, all of that comes from our platform. Like I say, a single physical server can deliver all of this. And you don't have to take my word for it. In fact, we'd love if you didn't and instead called some of our customers. We have customers throughout all the various verticals. We have an extremely strong presence in higher education and healthcare, pretty solid presence in government, but even the general enterprise market, which is sort of the catch-all for those that aren't in the other categories, we do extremely well in there. And these names are major names. These aren't like one small system in one branch office. These are large enterprise customers that have consolidated their infrastructure already and are using our product. And some of them had our product for 20 years. Some of them, went in last year. But we have the kind of references where if you're looking at doing this, you should get in touch with us. Let us put you in touch with the references so you can get a feeling for what we did for the other customers. When we go back and talk to our customers about, so in this complex and very competitive world of UC and infrastructure change out, you picked us, and why did you do that? Could you let us know? These are the categories that come up time and time again. And whether it's a legacy replacement, because we can do that better than anyone else, whether it's a unified messaging implementation and Gartner told them they should talk to us because we have the most flexible system, whether they needed custom business process apps to run on the same platform and no one else can do that, all of those reasons come into play for our customers. And it'd be great if you saw something in these categories that interests you and you got in touch with us, and maybe we can do the same thing for you. As always, the favorite slide comes last. Any questions?
There are some questions. The first question has to do with cloud services and wanting to stay on-premise. Is there any particular solution we recommend for that?
So for us, we've kind of divided the cloud. The cloud is one of those architectures that we have to be careful with because it means different things to different people. So we've torn the cloud apart into three things. We talk about the private cloud. The private cloud is basically your network. It can span multiple buildings in a city, multiple cities, multiple countries, but it's your network, it's under your control, and that's a type of cloud, but everything then would remain inside the enterprise. And there's a lot of people that find value in doing it that way. The other end of the scale is the true cloud, where things go up in the cloud and they're offered basically back to you as managed services. And we support that environment as well. Although we find interest, but very little movement in that market in terms of the giving up of control and the fact that that is definitely a rip and replace solution where, everything has to go to move to the cloud. In the middle, there's this new thing we call the hybrid cloud. And the hybrid cloud says, there are some things that I need to leave in my enterprise. I want that control. I can't afford to replace all this legacy functionality. But there's also some applications in the cloud that I want to use. Whether that I've decided to move to the cloud with Salesforce.com or Gmail or Office 365, that kind of functionality. I still need a way to have that be in the cloud, but the rest of my functionality to be within my firewall, and that is really where we excel. We're great at putting our pieces in within the enterprise and letting them communicate in the enterprise or out to the cloud. And we can give you the kind of references for people with Gmail and Office 365 and things like that have been using us, actually some of them for quite a while, to show you that is a support method that we've put in place. And we realize there will be more and more movement into the cloud as time goes on.
Okay, great. Next question, we have a couple of Atom questions. The first one is, what version of CXE do they need to be on to have Atom?
So Atom is an 8.5 piece, but keep in mind Atom is a packaging of other functionality. So Atom has some new things in it, but it's also, when we look at an Atom bundle, I give users an Atom bundle, they get unified messaging, they get personal assistant, they get speech. All of that's available in earlier versions, coming along in various stages in the 8.0 software. The final pieces that really tie this all together, like the mobile clients, the mobile location functionality, most of that came in the various releases of 8.5. If you're on ExpressCare, our software maintenance program, and you're at 8.2 or something, you can move to 8.5. The software is yours for free. There may be a charge from your vendor to do an upgrade, and licenses may be required, like Atom licenses or personal assistant licenses. But this is definitely an 8.something play to have the full package.
Okay, great. And that kind of leads into the next question is, what type of licensing is required for Atom?
Yeah, and so that one's, if you want the full Atom package for a user, so let's say I have 100 users and I want them to have everything that Atom has to offer, there are two approaches. One is we have Atom licenses. We have discounted license bundles called Atom that you can buy 100 of those and you'll get everything you need for 100 users to have everything. A speech user interface, the mobile clients, the find me, follow me, everything. Or if you already have a system, and let's say you have a system and you have 100 people that you want to have Atom, and you already have all those people with unified messaging licenses, Then there's piecemeal licenses that you can add to create that Atom functionality. You can add the personal assistant licenses and the ASR licenses to put that functionality together. So discussions about Atom, you have to keep in mind it's a package of functionality where the Atom licenses has the unified messaging licenses, the personal assistant licenses, and the ASR resources required for that number of users. 2 ways to get to Atom. And it really will depend on what you already have on your system.
Perfect. And then the last question, you kind of answered it already. But they're wondering if when you have Atom, if it's available to all users.
So it's a license-controlled feature. So in other words, to have the Atom features, my mailbox has to have the licenses applied to it. And what I have to have on a mailbox level is unified messaging and personal assistant. What I have to have the full feature pack is also on a system level. I have to have ASR or speech recognition resources. Those aren't tied to users. Those you'd buy a pool of 20 resources or whatever. But to have the full functionality, you do have to have that. Atom licenses are personal assistant, and speech.
Perfect. And that looks like those are all the questions. With that, Neil, did you want anything to add?
Yeah, I always like to add my thanks for everyone for coming out and keep that feedback coming in so we know what you'd like us to talk about and whether we're too long or too short or how you want us to do it. And, when you have more in-depth questions, you maybe didn't feel you could ask the question in here. I have an architecture that's so complex because of this. You don't have to be our customer to talk to us. If you want to get online with one of the sales engineers, myself or one of the other sales engineers, if you go through info.com, they will gladly put us in touch with you so we can answer your more complex questions. We're happy to do that.
Yes, we're always available for your questions.
Yep.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.